This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Have you ever thought about what would happen if your airline window popped out? Or if you could build a jetpack using only machine guns? Turns out you can, but you really shouldn't. Hi, I'm Jill Chacha, host of a podcast that's for weird people who like learning about weird stuff. It's called Well, That's Interesting, and it's a comedy science-y show that tells the story behind the facts because, as it turns out, those stories are funny. The facts are bizarre, the stories are epic, and the laughter is plentiful. So, join the flock and listen to Well, That's Interesting wherever you do podcasts.
Angels can't rebel. They don't have their own agency. They can't do that. They're not sexually compatible. They're not made of flesh and bone. Never
so
mind.
To speak.
Yes. Hey, everybody. I'm Dan McClellan.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And you're listening to the Data Over Dogma podcast, where we increase public access to the academic study of the Bible and religion. And we combat the spread of misinformation about the same. How are things today, Dan?
It's a steamy, hot day here in Salt Lake City, and life is good.
All right.
I'm excited. We're diving into some fun issues. I think we're gonna get some juice out of. We'll squeeze some juice out of these controversial issues.
Yeah, it's gonna be a juicy day. I went for a walk earlier today, and my shoes were pretty juicy by the time I was done. I've got really comfortable shoes that I like to walk around in, but if my feet sweat, I'm just slipping and sliding all over the place in those shoes, and I hate it. But that's neither here nor there. I do need better socks. Touche.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, what we're going to be doing, we have two segments today, as per the usual. Mm-hmm. The first segment is a taking issue, and the issue, what we're going to be taking issue with is what counts as a Christian. What are the markers of a Christian?
Yes, and who gets to decide too?
It's
the one who
spoiler alert. It's me. I get to figure it out. So you'll have to come to me to know for sure if you're actually a Christian. And then the second half of our show will be a what's that, and the what's that we're talking about are the sons of God.
Ben Elohim. Yes, the sons of God.
The sons. That's a plural thing. That's not. We're not talking about just the Son of God.
9.
So that'll be interesting. That'll be fun to dive into. But first, let's take issue. And this week we're taking issue with Christians. We're taking issue with you, Christians.
Yeah, we're gonna go off the beaten path this week, and we're gonna blaze a new trail through the tangled undergrowth of contemporary Christian identity politics. We had a wonderful discussion with my friend David Congdon a while ago on who is a Christian, his book that he published. I thought that was a fascinating discussion. But this was catalyzed by a recent discussion that was had on the Joe Rogan podcast when Texas state representative
and Opie Taylor lookalike.
Representative Tallarico, I believe James is his first name, right?
James Tallarico.
James Tallarico, who, if I understand, is hiding out somewhere right now. I don't know if he's
right.
If the sheriff and his posse have caught up with him yet.
Did someone check Mayberry? Because he's probably there. Down by the fishing hole is where I would go
check the fishing
first.
hole. He's got a cane pole on him, I know it. And by the way, oh man, that brings back memories. Cane pole, poppers. I don't even want to get into it. I cannot get sidetracked.
I don't know all of your drugs talk, weirdo.
No, this is growing up on a farm in West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
But that is also neither here nor there. Nothing is here or there for this discussion. But and he made an interesting point when he was talking to Brother Rogan. He was talking about Rogan asked him about a biblical case for legalized abortion. But there was one part where James made the case that he said, I get suspicious when people say certain issues need to be at the center of our identity as Christians.
Right.
When Jesus never said anything about them.
He's specifically referring to the fact that the political right and the sort of the Christian right of the United States have coalesced very strongly around the subjects of abortion and the rights of LGBTQ people.
Yes.
As the identity markers that make you Christian.
Yeah. And one of the things he concluded with was like, he said, I just don't think it's fair that to be a Christian, or when people understand that you're a Christian, they automatically assume that you're against abortion and against gay folks. And he says, because there are lots of Christians who do not subscribe to those particular policy positions.
Right.
And I thought
he's one of them specifically.
Yeah. And there are many of them. And I thought he made a pretty good appeal, and also pointed out, he said, my Christian brothers and sisters, they will have their passages to which they point in defense of their opposition to these things, and we can have that debate, and we should be able to have that debate. And he said, this is different from my concern, which is the notion that you have to oppose abortion and homosexuality if you're a Christian. And that's what he was speaking against. And immediately everybody jumped down his throat, and the overwhelming majority of the negative responses I saw were all entirely misrepresenting his argument. And
sure,
they all thought that he was saying nobody has a biblical case to make against abortion or homosexuality, which is what he specifically said. We can have that debate. That's a separate thing.
Well, and the way that he phrased it seemed important to me. By the way, we should mention we introduced him as a member of the Texas House of Representatives, which is true, but he's also a pastor.
Yes.
So people should be aware that he's not dumb about theology. He does know what he went to theological seminary, etc.
Yeah.
But what he said specifically was that he gets suspicious when people say that you have to centralize these ideas that Jesus never specifically spoke about.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an important an important thing. Like like you said, he recognized that you can make a case one way or the other on both of these things, and a biblical case at that. But you can't, to say that the thing that defines your Christianity is something that Jesus didn't even talk about I think that's a pretty strong point to make.
Yeah. I think the idea there is that, hey, if the Bible and the New Testament are the roadmap, if that is what is supposed to be dictating our morality, our identity, our faith, and all that to us, and Jesus never says anything about it, on what grounds do we say, well, this now takes priority over these other things? It's basically, I think he's pointing out that it is kind of a socially and historically contingent identity that these folks are asserting, as if what it means to be a Christian changes from generation to generation, depending on the particular political stances. And
I think I have news for you. I think what it means to be a Christian does change from generation to generation.
Well, yes, and that is because it's all socially contingent.
Right.
But for folks who insist this is all inspired, I mean, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot rhetorically here by saying that it is ever changing and it is always subordinated to social and historical contexts and circumstances.
Yeah, I think. So what are we talking about? What does make a Christian? Because I think that it is an interesting. I think when he said that and everybody jumped down his throat, I think what they were jumping down his throat about was they they do mark those as key and central points to their Christianity and to what they believe a Christian has to believe.
And I think, and I believe we've talked about it before, but at least in the case of abortion, this is of recent historical origin.
Right.
Like we can trace in the 70s an intentional rhetorical campaign to turn abortion into a central evangelical identity marker. It was for a time something that evangelical leaders did not feel so strongly about until some folks decided that they needed to gin up some outrage, and they identified abortion as their golden ticket because they were trying to arrogate more authority, government authority, to the Christian right so that they could exercise political power in their favor rather than being on the losing end of a lot of the political
and specifically
battles.
They were losing traction because they had been using the idea of race as their bludgeon, as their wedge point. Yeah. And they were losing traction on that. The writing was on the wall for that point.
Yes.
At least then. I don't know. It's making a comeback.
Yeah, the whole pendulum is unfortunately swinging the other direction. But with the Civil Rights Act, the government was starting to deny funding to schools that were not admitting black students, and denying grants and things like that to students. And so folks at like Bob Jones University, Jerry Falwell, Paul Weyrich, and others were like, we got to do something about this. Right. And the most bizarre thing, in my opinion, is that they ultimately, pendulum again, for decades, they lost that battle.
Yeah.
Like what they wanted to do, they weren't able to do. But instead, they ginned up this central identity marker that has become phenomenally powerful to the point that has helped facilitate the pendulum swinging back. And now you have a lot of the school choice arguments that people are ginning up for. I need state vouchers so that I can send kids to private schools, even though the vouchers really are only going to work for people who can already afford to send kids to private schools. But this is no different from Remember the Titans and people getting upset about desegregation.
Yeah,
like it's the same concern, really. It's just reborn in slightly different packaging. But I think that the pendulum swinging back, and I don't know how. If Jerry Falwell and Paul Weyrich are celebrating in their graves right now about white supremacy becoming such a big part of right-wing politics again, but it's certainly hurting a lot of the living these days. But that's you can see kind of they're trying to orchestrate what the central identity markers of Christianity are. So that they can structure power. And I was talking before we hit record, was mentioning that there are a lot of folks who make an awful lot of money trying to curate the boundaries of Christianity. A lot of apologists. I brought up James White, someone I got into it with on blogs back when blogs were a big thing. Almost
Dueling
15
blogs.
years ago.
Oh, it feels the internet of yesteryear. It's like home on the prairie for the internet.
Yeah, we were so young and naive then. I can remember when if my blog had 200 visits in a day, I was like, I had a good day today. And to quote the great poet, to misquote the great poet. But James White was fond of denying a lot of other folks their Christianity. And he had a video denying that Mormons were Christians. Yeah. And on my blog, I was like, hey, self-identity is really the main marker of membership in something like Christianity. And so if somebody's like, I don't think you're a Christian, great. You can't really tell them they're not allowed to think that,
Right.
but it doesn't go beyond their own perception. And when they try to make a case for why this should be authoritative, beyond the boundaries of their own skull, that case is never anything but dogmatic and arbitrary and usually pretty hypocritical, because James White will say that, the Trinity is the defining feature of Christianity. But then when he wants to turn around and tell Catholics that they're not Christians, suddenly the defining feature of Christianity is something entirely different. For a lot of people, what defines Christianity changes depending on who it is precisely they're trying to shove out of Christianity.
I guess that's the more salient question: is who isn't Christian? Yeah, right? Like, because the project is one of exclusion.
Yeah, and that's from my cognitive linguistic days and prototype theory. We approach categories as if they are naturally bounded, as if they have natural boundaries inherent to them. Right. And the reality is that when we form conceptual categories, and religious identity is 100% conceptual categories, we actually focus on prototypes. We focus on the center of the category, and membership it radiates out towards non-existent initially or fuzzy boundaries where membership is debated. And, there's a lot of examples that linguists will use to talk about this. Like if you had 100 different pieces of dining in a row going from a cup to a bowl and just kind of incrementally changing a tiny bit between the two ends of that, where do you say this is no longer a cup, this is now a bowl? Like it's entirely arbitrary.
Yeah.
And so that's absolutely the case with something like religious identity. There's no inherent essence to being Christian. There's no inherent boundaries to what makes a Christian. And so when people try to define it, overwhelmingly in order to exclude, because those fuzzy boundaries, they really only harden up when you need to exclude something.
Right.
When you run into an argument about whether or not this is a member of the category and it's an undesirable member. That's when you tend to come up with boundaries, and there are so many different ways that plays out in how we use our categories today. Like I have a paper that's going to be coming out in a volume on monotheism. Hopefully next year. I'm editing the volume and I'm very slow, but the other editors will do a better job than me. But one of the things I point to is you'll recall every now and then the argument flares up about whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich.
Right.
And this is kind of a rather silly example of how attempts to define things cause problems.
Yes.
When it's like, well, when you look at the definition of a sandwich, a hot dog qualifies. And it's like, well, these are conceptual categories. Definitions are arbitrary. They're imposed upon the category. They don't actually have anything to do with how categories function in real life. But that's one of the artifacts of this, is that you get these silly hot dog is a sandwich. And that was a little Kermity.
I mean, listen, hot dog I can go with you on, but if a hot dog is a sandwich, then is a taco a sandwich? And now we're in a whole heap of trouble.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than getting burned by a high wireless bill. And here's the thing, you might not even know that your wireless bill is high. A lot of the times they want you to think that everything's normal and that your wireless should be as expensive as it is. But I gotta say, Mint Mobile has really pared it down to you're only paying for what you need. And they have literally everything you need.
With Mint Mobile, you can use your own phone with any of their plans. You can bring your own number along with your existing contacts. All the plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. So say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping and surprising monthly bills, and unexpected overages. If I were not already using this product, it would be the product I would get.
Yeah. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get this new customer offer and your 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/dogma. That's mintmobile.com/dogma.
Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. This is an ad by BetterHelp.
Hey friends, you know, these days as you're surfing the web, as you're looking at your TikToks and whatever, it's very easy to find content that tells you how to get ripped or, you know, how to keep your health in check and how, you know, what kind of cold plunges or whatever you're supposed to do. But let me ask you something. Are you looking out for your mental health? Because mental health, none of those other things are worth all that much if your mental health isn't in order. I know that I have personally benefited very strongly from therapy. I have gone in for help with things about my relationships. I've gone in for help with things about my own personal life. When I was really suffering from depression, therapy was what helped me get out of it. And so I can't recommend therapy enough.
Yeah, my wife and I have done therapy together as well. It has been an incredible experience. And with over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally, and with an App Store rating of 4.9 out of 5 based on over 1.7 million client reviews. BetterHelp is convenient. You can join a session with a therapist at the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life, and you can change therapists if things are not clicking for you without any charge and at any time.
As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/dogma. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/dogma.
And so when it comes to Christian, it's always contextual.
Yeah.
It's like, who's asking? Why? Who is it you're trying to keep out? And then you argue from the conclusion.
Right.
It's overwhelmingly a conclusion in search of an argument.
Right. So I decide Dan McClellan is a Mormon and therefore that's not a Christian. Let me find an argument that fits that conclusion.
Yeah. And it's funny because people will be like, well, Christians don't accept him as Christians. It's like, well, that's kind of begging the question.
Yeah.
Because you have to decide whether or not they count in the Christian part of it all. And if you already are denying them that identity, it's kind of begging the question. But also, Pew and others have done research on this. And actually, the majority of Christians in America say that Mormons are Christians.
I mean, you got the name Jesus Christ right there in the full title of the church. So.
Which Mormons now feel obligated to say every time they say the name of the church.
They got yelled at pretty hard by their daddy. Yeah, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We're not supposed to say Mormons. They don't want us to. We're all very shocked, Dan, that you go along with this word Mormons.
Yeah, well, if you go on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's going by these days, there you will find a lot of people who insist that I probably can't even call myself a Mormon anymore and shouldn't call myself a Mormon for multiple reasons. One of them being that you're not supposed to use that word.
Yeah,
it's. I was gonna make an our word joke and thought better of it. So
well, it is your word. I don't know,
but we're not even allowed to use it now.
Yeah, exactly.
So but that becomes an identity marker in and of itself. That's Absolutely. A piece of costly signaling. Also, if you go online and you go, "How dare you say Mormon? You're not supposed to." That's a way to put on display to everybody else that you're willing to berate another Mormon. All in the name of defending the prophetic counsel that we've all been given. So that's just credibility enhancing displays. It's identity politics all the way down. So
well, and that's
That's
really
what we're talking about.
What we're getting at is that identity is the issue here, and whether you're an evangelical or a Catholic, or some other kind of Protestant or LDS or whatever, if the word Christian is important to you, which presumably it is to all of those categories or most of those categories. Or most people who inhabit those categories. The question of what makes someone a Christian becomes very, very vital.
Yeah.
And it becomes and can lead to some very silly arguments about like, no, Christians believe, it's funny. I remember at one point I heard a guy that I knew and his brother, who was of a different religious ilk, arguing just furiously about, what makes you a Christian is your belief in faith by works or salvation by faith or by works or whatever. And they kept both, like, from an outside perspective, they were saying exactly the same thing. They were using different words, but they were saying exactly the same thing. And I was just sitting there giggling as I listened from the other room.
And sometimes it comes down to whether or not you say the thing with the right words. Yeah. Because you can say the right thing and with the wrong words, and then suddenly you're out. And I've been surprised how frequently this comes up on like TikTok, because every single day, multiple times a day, people will comment that non-Christians shouldn't be talking about the New Testament or the Bible or things like that. And if I happen to see those and respond to them, I'll be like, oh, I'm a Christian. And
right.
and then, heads explode at that point.
Right. All hell breaks loose.
Yeah, because inevitably there will be those who will be like, Mormons aren't Christians, and and then that whole argument erupts, and then there will be others who it just does not compute for them. It's like, you're an atheist, and it's like, no, I'm not an atheist. Like the video I responded to some guy, a Catholic apologist. I think he goes by Jimmy Aiken, but he made a video responding to me, and one of the things that he was talking about was my Mormonism, and he was like, you say that it doesn't matter, but then you go and make statements like this, and then he shares a clip of me saying, I am not an atheist. And like, checkmate is I imagine he felt like saying, but I get kind of annoyed by how frequently I have to curate the understanding of the relevance of my religious identity on my channel. I wish, and people like, you're lying to people. You need to let them know at the top of every video that you're a Mormon. It's like, that would be kind of dumb.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm like, I should do that just so, that will reduce the number of comments I have on most of my videos by probably 20 to 25%. But
I think it would just change the comments.
Yeah, there would be different comments. I'm still surprised by how many times, like in this video I posted where I was responding to this individual, I was still getting comments from people like, I've been following Dan for 2 years. I didn't know he was a Mormon.
Yeah.
And it's like, only every other video now has to address it.
I think it's funny. It's the other funny thing about that is that, like you say, if a person, or rather what I assume you mean is that if a person knows what they're talking about, why, this whole idea of the atheists, Mormons, whoever shouldn't be talking about the New Testament or shouldn't be talking about the Bible. If they know what they're talking about, why wouldn't you want their input? Why wouldn't you want to hear it? But again, it's like, it's this grabbing of ownership of something, which, by that logic, probably Christians, if you want to say that, like, we own this, so you shouldn't have any access to it. I got bad news about the Old Testament for you guys, because somebody else claims that one.
Yeah, and that, there are a lot of folks like Christina Rossetti and others who study Mormonism who are not Latter-day Saints, and I'm not about to step to them. Say, hey, that's your wheelhouse, the particular fields of study that they're in. Just because you happen to be a living, breathing human does not make you an expert on human biology.
Right.
Just kind of innately. That's not how it works. But yeah, it frequently comes down to boundary maintenance and who gets to be in charge. And something that I've frequently pointed out, who gets to be in charge of who's a Christian? Nobody. There is no individual or combination of individuals on the planet who has authority over another individual's ability to identify as a Christian. Really, it comes down to consensus and like ecclesiastical hierarchy. If there's a group out there where you actually have to have a membership card, or you have to have the tattoo, or you have to have some kind of indication that you are an official member of that group, like that's the only time somebody can say you're not a member of our particular group.
Right.
But there is no such
every individual Christian church can say that.
Yeah, and there's no group that has authority over all Christians.
Right.
That just doesn't exist.
Right.
So there's no person or combination of people who has any authority at all over anyone's ability to identify just as a Christian. And anybody who pretends to arrogate that authority to themselves is just playing identity politics.
Damn you, Martin Luther. There used to be a guy who had authority over who got to call themselves a Christian. Oh, I guess not, because there were still Eastern Orthodox.
Oh yeah, there are Christians all over the place who.
But there was a guy who was pretty sure he had there's lots of people who are pretty sure they have the authority to do it.
Yes, they come to my website and my channel every single day to let me know that they're the ones.
I now I'm tempted to start calling myself calling myself a Christian who doesn't believe in Jesus or God, just to mess with people, just to really mess up the category.
Okay, I'm going to throw a wrench into this discussion a little bit.
Great.
Talked about Pew. Pew does, not Pews, but the Pew Research Center.
Right.
They do a wonderful religious landscape survey every few years. And one of the things they talk about is belief in God. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating because, you get like Buddhists and things like that, where like 25% of them are positive that no God exists.
Right.
And it's comparable for Jewish folks.
Yeah.
And then there's like 3% of Orthodox Christians say they're positive God doesn't exist. And about the same percentage of atheists are positive that a God does exist.
I know. It's amazing.
I think it's so fun because, hey man, atheism is just as much an identity as any of the religions.
Or
and
can
so,
be, sure.
It can be. And so I think as much as Christians are like, you can't be an atheist Christian, I frequently get, you can't be a believing atheist from the other side as well when I point that out. But
yeah,
those kinds of identities are messy and they are tricky and they have to do with belonging and membership, commonly more than they have to do with a credence that you sign off on.
Yeah.
And again, when it comes to a lot of these religions, signing off on the credence doesn't necessarily mean you actually believe those things. There are an awful lot of people who are like, oh yeah, I'm willing to sign off on that.
Yeah. I say
even
the
though they
Nicene
don't
Creed every Sunday, but it's like, come on.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that Protestantism did was it reduced Christianity, at least, but religion really, because our conceptualization of religion is a thoroughly Protestant conceptualization, but reduced it all down to a set of truth claims.
Right.
And so now people think of religious identity and religion as just a set of truth claims, but it's never been that. It's never been reducible to that.
Yeah.
It's community. It's it's ritual.
It's behaviors.
It's meaning making. It's behaviors. It is death anxiety curating. It's all of these things all wrapped into one. And there are an awful lot of people who enjoy everything about it, but maybe not so much the truth claims. That doesn't make them any less Christian or Jewish or Muslim,
right,
or atheist. So I think it's a fun conversation to have, mainly because of how just enraging it is for people who would like everything to fit into a neat, nice little box.
Well, one of the interesting things, when you ask a Christian, what makes a Christian, you'll get a lot of different answers. But one of the things that I never like, you'll get people that say you have to personally accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, or the Bible is the final authority on whatever, blah, blah, blah. And what I've never hear is the one section of Romans, I think it's Romans 12.
Romans 12.
Where Paul is talking about, is this actually Paul? I never remember which one.
Oh, yeah. Romans is one of the genuine Pauline epistles.
Okay, so Paul is talking about, the section, Romans 12, verse 9 through the end of the chapter, the section in multiple translations is marked marks of the true Christian.
Yes. And
you know what it doesn't say? Any of the things that I hear people say when they say when they're asked what a true Christian is.
Yeah, it's there's nothing about belief in here. There's certainly nothing about whether you are diaphysite or monophysite or miaphysite or whatever.
I don't know what those words mean at all. I don't know what any of those things were.
Those are, remember we talked about saying the same thing but using different language.
Yeah.
These are some of the debates that raged in the 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th centuries about when you're whittling down your conceptualization of Jesus, like it came down to, well, how do you understand the distinction between Jesus's divine and human natures? Because that's just, we are at an impasse.
Right.
We can go no further until we settle this, and you are all now ejected from our kingdom if you cannot say the right word. So, but yeah, there's nothing about belief.
It says, let love be genuine, hate what is evil, hold fast to what is good, love one another with mutual affection, outdo one another in showing honor. It's real nice.
Here's one verse that I think a lot of people would do well to take note of. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Pursue hospitality to strangers. So for the folks who are like, hey, I'm sorry, we got to, snatch Jesus from the parking lot of the Home Depot that he's working at and send him off to a gulag and leave his kids in the car that is running because of Romans 13:1. It's like, but you just entirely ignored Romans 12:13, which is quite a bit more central to defining Christianity if we take Paul's word for it.
Right. Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, you can rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. And we will move on to our next segment, which is What's That? And the What's That we're talking about, we're going to Genesis 6 as our starting point.
Yes.
Because
our jumping off point, our springboard.
Our springboard, if you will. And We'll just start with because Genesis 6 opens up with people multiplying. We're in the early days of humanity in this.
Yes, we're about to segue into the flood.
Right.
Yes,
but the multiplying of people is about to get.
It's not subtle.
Get the kibosh.
It's a quick pivot.
Yeah.
So. It says, when people began to multiply on the face of the ground, and it literally says that, Al Panei Hadamah, the face of the ground, the sons of God, the Ben Elohim, it says daughters were born to them. And then it says the sons of
daughters
God,
were born to the people.
To the people who were multiplying like rabbits on the face of the ground. The sons of God saw that they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all that they chose. So the B'nai Elohim, or B'nai Elohim, if you're nasty, that is what we're talking about here. But Genesis 6:3 says, then Adonai, the Lord, said, My spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh. Their days shall be 120 years. And
which is a weird thing to say in chapters before Noah. Because
it did not turn out to be 120 years.
Because, he theoretically lived way longer than that.
As did all the patriarchs, except for one. I forget which one it was, but it might be like Isaac or somebody. I forget. But somebody was like, oh, darn it, they didn't get to live as long. And then we get to verse 4, which is the peculiar verse. The Nephilim, or Nephilim, if you're nasty.
If you're wrong.
If you're wrong. I see people tag me in videos where people are like, I'm going to drop some knowledge on y'all about the Nephilim. It's like, is this a battery that you... they were on the earth in those days and also afterward. When the sons of God went into the daughters of humans who bore children to them, these were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. And so here's a peculiar thing about this passage, which I think is unclear both in the English and in the Hebrew. It does not say that the Nephilim were the offspring of the union of the sons of God and I think Benot Hadam, the daughters of humanity. It just says they were there.
Yeah.
It's like, this was when those weirdos were around.
Yeah.
So it does not necessarily say that. It gets interpreted that way by an awful lot of folks, but it's not clear to me that this text is stating that the Nephilim were the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of humans. That is how First Enoch takes it.
Oh, okay.
So, like, that is the traditional reading. I don't think it's necessarily there. Now, and here's
but there may have been like a cultural a cultural understanding of who these people were.
Well,
that isn't present in this text.
Right. And we may have a little hat tip in the direction of a similar cultural understanding, because it says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards. We have a little parenthetical, a little interjection there. And this is kind of a nod to the fact that Nephilim are mentioned in one other verse.
Yeah.
In all the Hebrew Bible. And I mentioned to Dan earlier, things are about to get wild when they say, open up the book of Numbers.
Yeah.
So Numbers 13, verse 33, the word Nephilim occurs twice there. And this is part of the what do they call it? The wicked report, the bad report.
If that's not the title of someone's like TikTok channel, the Wicked Report,
somebody's missing out. Yeah. So that is when the spies are sent into the land, and they come back and they're like, "Oh, it sucks. It all sucks. We shouldn't go in there. We should go back to Egypt." But one of the things they say is that they saw the Nephilim and we were like grasshoppers to them.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, where we get the idea that Nephilim means giants, because the Septuagint, the ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, renders gigantes, or I think I might be slurring my Spanish and my Greek together. It's probably not gigantes. When they, in those days, no, that was right, gigantes. Okay, so they translate Nephilim as giants, and Nephilim does not mean giants. Our best bet is that it means fallen ones, and probably is a reference to some kind of post-mortem fallen warrior race or class or something like that.
They're zombies?
Something like that.
Yeah. I like it. They are zombies.
Yeah. And so they get translated as giants, and I think probably because of the other story where the spies come back and they're like, "Oh, we were like little grasshoppers to them," which is probably hyperbole.
Right.
They probably weren't like literally they're 300 feet tall. Like we average 5'4", they were at least 10.5 feet tall.
Right.
Like I don't know that verse ought to be taken so literally, but They they link them with the what was it, the Anakites? Yeah.
Hello everyone, Stakuyi here.
And I'm Gabby.
And we are the hosts of History of Everything, a podcast which you can probably guess by the name is, well, I mean, it's about everything. Do you want to know why people thought potatoes were evil and would give you syphilis? Are you curious about all the stories of the terrible and stupid ways that people have kicked the bucket over the years? Do you want to hear tales about all of the different badasses of history and the lives that they had brought to life? Well, if so, then look no further. History of Everything is just the right podcast for you. It's available on Spotify, Pandora, and anywhere else that you get your podcast from. Join us for some fun and just see how weird and wacky history can be.
In all human history, there are few stories like that of ancient Egypt. On the banks of the Nile, these people created one of the most enduring and significant cultures. Their tale comes to life in the History of Egypt podcast. Every week, we explore the tales of this amazing culture, from the legendary days of creation and the gods, all the way to Cleopatra, and everything in between. The History of Egypt podcast is written and produced by a trained Egyptologist. We go much deeper than your average documentary or magazine article to uncover tales of life, great endeavors, and the amazing arc of a mighty kingdom. The History of Egypt podcast is available on all podcasting platforms, apps, and websites. Come, visit ancient Egypt and experience a legendary culture.
What's something you learned in history class that you feel wasn't the whole truth? Better yet, what's something you didn't learn at all that was omitted completely? That's what I like to call redacted history. I believe that all history, no matter how good or bad, needs to be told. There are wars, massacres, battles, and entire historical events that are just not in our school's history books. Have you ever heard of Mary Bowser? I didn't think so. My name is Andre White, the host of the Redacted History Podcast, the place where history's forgotten events, heroes, and villains get their story told, one episode at a time. So come huddle around the campfire with me and get ready to hear the stories that you were robbed of. And get comfortable. We're going to be here a while. The Redacted History Podcast. Real history never dies. Stream the Redacted History Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts.
The other interesting problem here is that this is theoretically post-Diluvian. We're after the flood in this moment.
Yeah.
So presumably the Nephilim either were drowned, so how could the Anakites come from them? Or they had snorkels.
Yeah,
they were they're so giant that their heads were above water the whole time, and they just waited it out.
I always want to point out, be like, yeah, they drowned in the flood. Trailing off, kind of, and I'm thinking of Frank Drebin when he's like got the evidence that so and so was involved in all these crimes, and he's like, and where is this evidence? And well, it burned in the fire. So yeah, they but that's what verse 4 is like. Parenthetically, they're like, oh, and they were there afterwards too.
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to tell you how, because according to the flood tradition, everything that drew breath, everything that had the breath of life in it, was snuffed out, was destroyed. So they should not have survived. And this is one of the clues that combines with a number of other clues to convince, I think, most critical scholars that the flood tradition is a secondary insertion into the primeval history.
How dare you? How dare you, sir?
Dare. That's another, not too deep a cut, but dare I say, dare. That is that's Blazing Saddles. Excuse me. But yeah, this is probably why the Nephilim were there before and after, because there was no flood.
Right.
And
then do you think that phrase, the parenthetical and also afterward phrase, was inserted later as when somebody was like, "Oh, wait, we mentioned that also in Numbers. Crap. Let me just chuck this in here real quick just to cover our butts."
It certainly could be. It
reads like that to me. That's
yeah. It does. It's kind of it's kind of like your Book of Mormon. Oh, and by the way, you're thinking that this actually means this, but here's a little clue so that you are not led astray by what I just said.
Right.
It sounds like an afterthought, but something that was inserted in there later. We certainly don't have, as far as I'm aware, we don't have any textual evidence of that. But
Right.
I think there are certainly scholars who would raise an eyebrow or two about the integrity of this passage. But you also have some folks who think that this whole story about the B'nai Elohim is inserted in here secondarily, because it seems like it's supposed to be motivation for God to send the flood, but it doesn't really have a connection to what the next verse says catalyzed the flood. The Lord saw that the wickedness of humans was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their heart was only evil continually.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, but what about these demigods that are evidently roaming all over the place? Like, they're setting it up as if the reason everything's going wrong is because the B'nai Elohim were causing trouble. But then this verse is like, oh, the silly humans. And if you take out the Nephilim account, then it doesn't feel like the problem is big enough to merit killing everything. Because then it's just like, and God looked at the humans and they're mad at everything. Look at them, they got anxiety. All it says is, oh, the every inclination of the thought of their hearts was evil continually. Oh, I guess I'll just destroy them all. That doesn't sound adequate. That doesn't sound like a just reason for the deluge. And so maybe somebody
I
was
have
like,
bad news for you. Nothing sounds like a just
reason,
reason for the deluge.
But somebody at some point was like, what if we threw the Nephilim in there?
What if we threw these guys? So let's talk a little bit about these.
Who them are?
What's that?
Who them are? Yeah.
Who are them?
The B'nai Elohim.
These sons of God who aren't Jesus.
No.
And
they're plural.
And ain't us.
Yes. We've got a few different phrases that we see throughout the Hebrew Bible. Here we have B'nai Elohim, which is literally sons of the God or sons of the gods. And then elsewhere it's just B'nai Elohim, sons of God or gods, because Elohim can be plural or singular. This is what you see in Job chapter 1, verse 6, in Job chapter 2, where the sons of God come prancing before God's throne to present themselves. Ta-da! And Hasatan, the Satan, is among them. In Job, 37 or 38, the sons of God shouted for joy with all the stars at the foundation of the earth. You have, I think you have B'nai Elim, which would also be sons of gods, but more explicitly plural, in Psalm 29. And in a few other places. And then you have B'nai Elyon, sons of the Most High, in Psalm 82, which is probably a callback to Deuteronomy 32, 8, and 9, where Elyon divides up the nations according to the number of the sons of God.
Right.
And there's a long history of interpretation here, which I would argue begins in hoary antiquity with the conceptualization of the gods of the divine council as the offspring, the literal children of the high deity and the high deity's consort, partner, or wife. We see this in the Ugaritic literature, where El is the high deity, Athirat is the consort, partner, or wife of El, and then all of the gods of the divine council are referred to as the children of El, or the 70 sons of Athirat. And so this is probably the tradition that's influencing what's going on here. So in the earliest conceptualization, the B'nai Elohim would have been the literal offspring of the divine couple, the children of God, and that would have constituted the various patron deities of the different nations of the earth and the various members of the divine council. So that, I think, is the oldest conceptualization.
And this would have been written at a time when the this was before Yahwism. Is that correct? This is before sort of that, but that got conflated with El? Do we know?
So these hierarchies and structures, yes, predate Adonai's arrival into the area. Now, their use in the Hebrew Bible probably does not. But the Deuteronomy 32, 8, and 9, I and many other scholars think preserves an early understanding of Adonai as one of the B'nai Elohim, as one of the children of God.
Right.
And so Elyon would be a separate deity, the Most High, and then Adonai would have been one of the B'nai Elohim, who was given Israel as their inheritance. That was the nation that they inherited from Elyon, and which is why Israel is repeatedly referred to as Adonai's inheritance in the Hebrew Bible. But that meant that Adonai's purview and sovereignty, geopolitically speaking, was limited to the land of Israel, which we've talked about many times on this channel.
So theoretically, what we could be talking about then is sort of other patron deities or at least entities of that level, whether they were given a patronage or not, deciding to live here on Earth and grab them one of those pretty human girls that seem so fun.
And this story, like, there's no good place to slot this into like the rest of kind of the narrative that we find in the Hebrew, or the narratives that we find in the Hebrew Bible or in other literature. Like there aren't a lot of traditions of demigods running around the different nations of the earth because they are the offspring of their patron deity and human women.
Yeah, it really does seem like it's just thrown away. It's like they dropped this bomb at the beginning of this chapter and then just never mind.
And that's one of the reasons I think that you have later elaboration on it by other texts, and the main one being First Enoch, which kind of takes this text in the Greco-Roman period, the Hellenistic period, and runs with it. And one of the first things that they do is they reinterpret the B'nai Elohim as angels.
Okay.
And this is part of the post-exilic kind of squishing down of the divine council, which occurred alongside the elevation, the exaltation of Adonai, the God of Israel. They're trying to distinguish and separate these two groups of deities, Adonai in one group and then everybody else on another group, and they get shoved down into angelic status. And so these are now angels, and they're given a bunch of names in Enoch, and you have the head malevolent angel and all this. And so a bunch of angels rebel and descend to Mount Hermon and on Earth, and then they have sex with all these human women, and the offspring are the giants, and then the giants give birth to the Nephilim, and then the Nephilim die, and their spirits rise up and become the disembodied demons that inhabit the earth and possess people.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, that's the story in First Enoch. Well, it's one of the stories. They actually repeat things a few times, and it's not always consistent.
Repetition in the Bible? What?
Yeah, can you
Only
believe
that's not
it?
the Bible, right? Or the non-canonical Bible or whatever.
Well, it depends on whose canon you're talking about, because it's still a part of the canon of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church.
Right.
So
I remember that.
Yes, it is in there. But this raises an interesting question, because once you get down into early Christianity and early Judaism in the 1st century BCE, 1st century CE, people are beginning to ask questions, because they're like, wait a minute, so the angels had sex with humans?
Yeah.
And they were rebelling against God.
Right.
And you had a bunch of different people on different sides of this going, wait a minute, angels can't rebel. They don't have their own agency. They can't do that. And then there were other people saying they're not sexually compatible. They're not made of flesh and bone. Never
so
mind.
to speak.
Yes.
As it were.
As it were, in the parlance of our times. And so you had a bunch of different ideas developing about the sexual compatibility of angels. And so and you see actually different positions in the New Testament. Because you have the idea that that is reflected in one of the epistles, I think, Peter, that these angels, no, it's Jude. We talked about this. The angels kept not their first estate, and they came down and did the naughty. And then it talks about Sodom and Gomorrah in like manner. Pursued other flesh. And so this is condemning the angels who are trying to have sex with women as, this perverse abomination, just like the men of Sodom who tried to have sex with angels. We're crossing boundaries here that ought not be crossed.
Right.
And there's a wonderful paper from, 53 years ago, written by Philip Alexander called Targumim and the Early Exegesis of Sons of God. But he talks about a lot of early Jewish debates about this. For instance, some of the folks said that the Testament of Reuben says that there was no actual intercourse between the angels and the women. The angels changed themselves into the shape of men and appeared to the women when they were with their husbands.
Oh.
So, yeah, they were basically just leering at them in the shape of male humans. And what does it say? Oh, and the women lusting in their minds after their forms. So the women are with their husbands in the biblical sense, and suddenly an angel decides to take the form of a human male, and the ladies are like, hey now.
Right.
And
Hotness.
this resulted in them giving birth to giants, for the watchers appeared to them as reaching even unto heaven.
Wow.
So now I'm thinking of Isaiah 6 and what exactly it was that filled the temple. But
right. But
I
know the reference. Yes.
So and now we're getting into the sympathetic magic with Jacob and the sticks in front of the sheep. They saw these well endowed in who knows how many ways angels while they were doing the hibbity-dibbity with their husbands, and so they conceived giants, evidently.
Right.
And then you have others, let's see, another text that said, Rabbi Joshua ben Karcha said, the angels are flaming fire, as it is said, his servants are flaming fire, Psalm 104:4. The fire had intercourse with flesh and blood, yet did not burn the body. But when they fell from heaven, from their holy place, their strength and stature became like that of the sons of men, and their frame was made of clods of dust. As it is said, my flesh is clothed with worms and clods of dust, Job 7:5. And so Alexander says, the implication is that real intercourse took place, made possible because the angels assumed material bodies of evidently fire and dirt. So
I mean, it's like in Superman 2 when Superman goes into the chamber and
reverses the thing. Yeah.
And then he's suddenly not Superman anymore.
And then he tricks him. And so the one guy goes, huh!
Yeah.
And then just,
whoa, spoiler alerts, man.
Oh, hey, if you have not seen Superman 2 yet, I'm not going to ruin Superman 4. Yeah. What's the guy's name? Nuclear Man or something like that? Oh,
my goodness. Well, listen, when you get a hair from Superman, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah. So basically there was a lot of controversy about sexy angels.
Yeah.
Stupid sexy angels.
Dang it. Stop being so hot.
And so this is what's going on. We've talked about Jude. That was one of the things that was going on. However, the folks who were like, wait a minute, angels can't rebel. Wait a minute, angels can't have sexual intercourse with human women. Another interpretation popped up.
Okay.
What if they're humans? Yeah.
The angels?
Well, the Ben Elohim, the children of God. And so a different interpretation of Genesis 6 popped up, which understood the Ben Elohim, the children of God, to be a reference to the line of Seth. And so this is humans who are doing this, and therefore not gods at all.
Okay.
And so this is kind of sidestepping the Enochic tradition, saying we don't like that tradition, we're going to go this other way that interprets things as humans. And what this facilitated was this allowed them to now look at other passages that use the word Elohim and say, maybe it's humans there too. And so we get Exodus 21 and Exodus 22, where you have these different rituals that you're supposed to do before Ha Elohim, and the verbs associated, at least in Exodus 22, make clear that these are plural Elohims, and so it's not just God. You see a lot of translations that render judges there, because they're like, well, this must be, so by analogy with the human reading of Genesis 6, we're also going to read these Elohim as humans as well, and we're just going to imagine that they're judges. So this debate resulted in a few different interpretations of what the Ben Elohim could be.
Sure.
And one of those interpretations was, oh, they're just humans. They're the line of Seth.
Which is weird because they do seem to be very much differentiated from the daughters of people.
Humans, yes, of mortals. It's an odd contrast to draw.
It starts with the idea, if that is your interpretation, then Genesis 6 says, when people had daughters, then the sons of other people thought that they were fair. Yeah, I think that's how it works.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to be like the humans. They had children with the daughters of humans.
Right, exactly. It feels like a weird thing to make a distinction about.
Yeah, it's a little anticlimactic, but so yeah, it's clearly not what was originally intended, but that became for a lot of people, and particularly as the Enochic tradition kind of faded into the background, that kind of became a more standard view. And so today you'll see an awful lot of people who'd be like, "Oh, that just means judges."
Yeah.
However, the Enochic tradition is starting to make a comeback because the text has been available now in English translation for some time. You're seeing a lot more people who were like, "They took this from us. We gotta bring it back." And so there's a lot more concern for what this means, and I don't think they have yet thought about the implications of returning to an angelic interpretation of Genesis 6 for how they interpret other uses of the word Elohim or Ben Elohim elsewhere in the Bible. So
there you go.
It's a mess.
It's a mess. Like so many of the topics that we go over, it's entirely unclear, but what we do know is that there's something fishy going on.
Yeah,
something
stupid,
weird
sexy
happens.
angels.
And something tells me that if biblical authors had any idea how much like turmoil their little things would cause in the future, I think they might have thought a little better of how they did a few things. But
I think an awful lot of them would be proud of how influential their texts have been. They would be like, I did that?
That is the true answer of the perpetual provocateur. So there you go. Well done to you. I guess that's it for the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you would like to become a part of what makes this show happen and part of like our favorite people, please consider becoming a patron of the show over on Patreon, patreon.com/Data Over Dogma. We're very easy to find, and you can choose what you want to give us, and in return, you can get early and ad-free access to every episode, and the after party bonus content every week, and that's about it for that. Feel free to give as much as you want. Give a lot if you really want to. We'd be pleased with that. Thanks so much to Roger Gowdy for editing the show. If you want to reach out to us, it's contact@dataoverdogmapod.com, and we will talk to you again next week.
Bye, everybody.
Data Over Dogma is a member of the Airwave Media Network. It is a production of Data Over Dogma Media, LLC, copyright 2025, all rights reserved.
Yeah, Film Vault.
We are one of the original film podcasts.
That can't be true.
There was like 2 other film podcasts when we began, Brian.
How long have we doing this show?
You and I first sat down and did a version of the show over 20 years ago.
My God.
2 episodes each week. One,
we review movies, and the first episode, and the second one, different top 5 every week. Movies that made you cry. Worst movie accents. Most disturbing movies. All right, the Film Vault, check it out.
wherever you find fine podcasts.
That's right, the Film Vault, going on 20 plus years.
From the creators of the popular science show with millions of YouTube subscribers comes the Minute Earth podcast. Every episode of the show dives deep into a science question you might not even know you had. But once you hear the answer, you'll want to share it with everyone you know. Why do rivers curve? Why did the T-Rex have such tiny arms? And why do so many more kids need glasses now than they used to? Spoiler alert, it isn't screen time. Our team of scientists digs into the research and breaks it down into a short, entertaining explanation, jam-packed with science facts and terrible puns. Subscribe to Minute Earth wherever you like to listen.
If you like this podcast, can we recommend another one? It's called Big Picture Science. You can hear it wherever you get your podcasts, and its name tells part of the story. The big picture questions and the most interesting research in science.
Seth and I are the hosts. Seth is a scientist. I am Molly, and I'm a science journalist. And we talk to people smarter than us, and we have fun along the way. The show is called Big Picture Science, and as Seth said, you can hear it wherever you get your podcasts.